All right, we're going to be taking off TRS crank arms. Basically, it's by E13, and they use a special tool. So, had to buy some more toys to add to the tool wall over here to accommodate the new parts that are coming out. Let's see, I'll give you part number CSH.LRBLT.EXT.K. In other words, it's a bolt 1 degree crank M15 washer extractor kit. So it's kind of like holding on to somebody, trying to take their jacket off. You grab their jacket or sleeve, hold them while you're pulling and peeling that sleeve right off of them. This is the self-extraction right here, so you're holding them in place. So this is the part that we have to install. So we're going to take this apart. We're going to put everything installed onto the bike. And then once the crank arm is off, I'll show you how this thing works. We'll be able to demonstrate with the crank arm itself. So what we're going to do is take off the original bolt. This is the bolt system here, I believe. We're going to unscrew that. It's going to be typically a 8mm hex or Allen key tool. Get yourself in the right position here so you don't hurt yourself if the tool slips or something. Make sure that tool's in there deep. Unscrew this guy. We got pegs on these pedals, so watch your hands. It's pretty tight there, so I'm going to put myself in a better position here. So if you got yourself a work stand, if you don't, you need to get one. It's your best tool, your best friend. First tool you should have. So let's get this guy situated. I always like to throw my right arm over that top tube. I'm working from the drive side over here. And then step number 2, we're going to get your non-drive side crank. We're going to get it in a horizontal position, probably pointed backwards, so I get to have the right pedal right here near my crotch. So I'm going to grab that, and then you're going to grab your tool here. You're going to use your thicker end. You're going to use the other end to give you more torque. Now this tool needs to be almost opposite of that crank arm, staying horizontal. So basically the crank arm's in the 9 o'clock and the tool's going to be in 3 o'clock or close to that. It's going to give you the best leverage. Now I can really position my body, get good leverage here. Something slips, I'm not going to hit anything. Hand slips, I'm not going to get ripped up or something like that. So my left hand here, all I'm doing is locking my left arm out, and I'm going to pull up on this one. I just need to crack it free about an inch or so. And again, use a rag or gloves if you need to, if the pedal's tough. And this should be regular lefty-loosey, counterclockwise. And it'd help if I went the correct direction. So I just tightened it. So I'm going to hold on to this crank and I'm push down here. There we go. So that little bit just broke it free. Now I can come over with my ball end and start spinning it free. So all this is a cap. If this was a self-extracting system, if it was set up properly, which I think their newer cranks do have that, as I'm unscrewing this, you would feel more tension because then it would be hitting the system, and then this whole arm would just slowly pop right off. But this is the older system, so this bolt comes off first. So very similar to what we saw earlier. That's a crank arm bolt. Now we have our washer. So we have crank arm, this whole system. Now we're going through the crank arm, then we'll keep going. Now we're going through the spindle, which is connected to the other side of the crank arm. All this is hollow. What the heck is that? It's either a moth or a big gook of earwax. Let's get that off of there. And then there are threads. There's threads on the outside of this edge of the crank arm, and then there's threads on the inside. So threads out here are part of the crank arm. Threads that are inside, right about there, that's your inner spindle. That's what we want to push off of, so this arm could pop off of it. What's up, Moglie? So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the kit. We're going to grab this one bolt here. You can put a tool on both sides where it goes through. It's just completely all threads. There's no head or flange on that, so that's going to get inserted into the actual spindle. So if you can get it started by fingers, get at least 1 or 2 revolutions, then you can go back with your tool. Again, 8mm. So I'm going to install this pretty much. We're going to go recessed in of the crank, just past the threads. Hard to see on camera, but we got about three threads that we just went recessed into, and then you can hit kind of a flush piece on the inside. So that's right inside there. And then now they give you this other tool here. It's got some knurling here, which means we're going to be using our fingers, is grabbing a grip. We got threads here. Again, 8mm, I believe, could be wrong. And then we're going to screw that in. So the knurled areas, that's where you're going to use your fingers. So we know which side goes in which. The threads are going to go in first. Threads are going to screw into this outer lip of the crank arm. And do that flush so there's no more threads exposed here. So that's good, just finger tight, that's it. And then we're good to go. So the other parts that you saw there is just another spare crank bolt, which we may use in this system, or you could save it for later. So now we can go ahead and go back with our 8mm. It's going to require some pressure, so I'm going to use this side here. It's going to be a lot tougher, stronger. And if it doesn't reach, then grab the appropriate tool when you get a good bite. So right now it's a little loose. I'm going to start unloosening. And what's going to happen is it's going to get tough. So right about there it got tough, so now what it's doing, the inner cylinder is now hitting this exterior cylinder. The exterior cylinder is connected to our crank arm here. The inner cylinder is going to push off of the spindle from the inside, taking this arm with it, blowing it out. So go nice and easy. And very important that this exterior ring that we just inserted is all the way down, no threads exposed, because we could accidentally rip or strip threads out of there. So when in doubt, double check. And definitely going to be using some pressure here. So it will be tough. Now, not the best position here. If it gets really tough, then you may want to go back on the other side. But right now, I'm just holding crank arm and pushing. But again, if it's tough, you can walk over to the other side. Do what I did here, holding the right side crank arm, and then just start unscrewing. You can either move your crank on this side or move your tool on this side. And when in doubt, throw some gloves on if you feel you're going to slip. That way you don't mash up your knuckles. So at this point, the crank arm should be starting to come off. You should see a gap right in this area getting bigger and bigger. If you don't see that, you want to double check, make sure you're doing things right. So pretty cool, E13, they did something a little bit different. This is basically the spindle here is a triangle rather than circular. So we got a point here, it's kind of rounded, flat and then point, flat and then another point. So basically just kind of created a new shape, called it their own. Here's that inner cylinder part of the tool. So that's how that works. So this basically was an attachment, it extended the spindle or the shaft or whatever you want to call that. So once we did that, you could think of this as a star nut in a steerer tube. You install your star nut, which now becomes part of the steerer tube. Then the bolt comes in and attaches to this guy. Now we have something to grab onto and either pull or push off of that. So this is going to come out, and then this whole spindle is going to push out that way. So if this plays nice, go ahead and get your chain off of there. Just let that chain, you could have it rest on the inside of the frame or on the outside, get it around that crank arm. If it plays nice, we're just going to pull this crank arm and chain ring out. Yeah, if it was stuck, we would just tap this in with a mallet. And that comes out just like that. All right, pretty cool how this system works. Got your spindle here, bonded to your drive side crank arm, non-drive side right here. So threaded right in here on the spindle. So this basically was connected here, of course in the correct orientation. Boom, just like that. So this little piece right here that has no flange screws into this tip here. And you're screwing in probably about half the length. And that's going to be flush with the interior on here. It's hard to see in the video, but that's sticking out just a little bit. And then what happens, this guy gets threaded into this portion here. So there's a few threads here on this outside. Again, probably hard to see on video. There's only one way this can go. One area your fingers are grabbing with the knurled edges, and then screw this in till there's no more threads showing. Basically finger tight, it stops right there. Then you're going to go back to your tool. This guy right here, he's just an extra crank bolt for tightening down, so we'll get him out of the way. Then you go back to your 8mm. So your 8mm is going to come in and it's going to go right through here. And when it goes through here, it's going to attach to this piece right here that we just installed into the spindle. Boom, attaches there. So when I start unscrewing, it's not really unscrewing out of this spindle here, well, it is, I guess it is unscrewing out of the spindle. It wants to come out, so it's going to start pushing, and it's going to start pushing on the inside of this crank arm, basically. So as I'm unscrewing, it's going to push this guy right off of this spindle. So this is going to detach from this piece right here. So the newer versions and many other brands already have a built-in system like this. Like this piece right here would stay here permanently. You would see this on the bikes, except you wouldn't be able to get your fingers on it. It would just be kind of cut off and flush with the area. They do allow you to take it off if needed. You can use a spanner wrench. It's got 1, 2, 3 probably little holes that you could put a tool on, or you would use a bigger Allen tool, maybe a 10, but there's really no need to take that off at all. They use thread locker to keep that in there permanently, so it doesn't vibrate loose on you. So it's all built-in system, so you can just come in, you can go up to your buddy's bike, have the appropriate size wrench, stick it in there, start unscrewing, you'll pop this arm right off of your spindle, and then you can walk away with it. Boom, you're done.